Welcome to the weekly briefing. Get ready for your daily Pop 5.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today is Saturday, February 14th, 2026. Happy Valentine's Day to you. Whether you are currently staring lovingly into someone's eyes, plotting world domination with your best friends,
or just enjoying the peace and quiet.
Or just enjoying the peace and quiet. The solo party legends, as our source material put it. We are really glad you're here.
Absolutely. It's a big day. A day for lovers, for dreamers.
Yeah.
And yeah, for the solo party legends out there.
I love that phrase, solo party legends. It feels like a badge of honor. Look, we have a fascinating stack of notes today. I was reading through this briefing from Daily Pop Vibe about the last 7 days, and honestly, if you've been feeling like the ground is sort of shifting beneath your feet, culturally speaking, you are not crazy.
You're definitely not. It's been a week that I would describe as, well, the report called it straight up legendary, and I don't think that's an exaggeration.
Not at all.
We're seeing data points that suggest we aren't just watching pop culture. We're watching history get rewritten in real time.
We really are. We're going to unpack 3 massive stories that seem, totally distinct on the surface. But when you line them up, they paint a pretty wild picture of 2026. We've got a historic breakthrough at the 68th Grammy Awards, and I mean historic.
A big one.
Then we have a linguistic takeover at Super Bowl LXI that kind of defies everything we thought we knew about American primetime.
And then, just to throw a curveball, we're heading to New York to look at this AI art phenomenon that's being described as spooky chic.
Spooky chic. I still don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we'll get there. The mission for this deep dive is to look at these moments, these wins, and figure out what they actually mean.
Right. What does it all mean for global representation? Because on the surface, sure, it's music and sports and art, but when you really dig in, you see the tectonic plates moving, you see the whole definition of mainstream being dismantled and rebuilt right in front of us.
Okay, let's do it. We have to start with the Grammys.
It has to be the Grammys.
The 68th Annual Grammy Awards just wrapped up, and, well, there were a million headlines. There's one that is just screaming for attention, the track Golden.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, for those who haven't been glued to the charts, this is from the K-pop Demon Hunters movie soundtrack. But here's the thing that just jumped out at me. This track officially snagged the first ever Grammy for a K-pop track.
Which is huge. But I think we need to pause on that, on first ever. Because if you're a casual listener, you might be thinking, wait, hasn't K-pop been massive for like 15 years?
Exactly. That was my first thought. BTS, Blackpink, Stray Kids, they've been selling out stadiums since the early 2020s. How is this the first one?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Historically, the Recording Academy, they've been incredibly conservative. They viewed K-pop, and frankly, most boy bands, as this kind of fan phenomenon, not as serious music.
So it's like, oh, the kids love it, the internet loves it.
It was not art. Exactly. There was a glass ceiling.
A gatekeeping thing. 100%. It was institutional gatekeeping. You saw it with Latin pop in the 90s, with hip-hop in the 80s. So for Golden to finally take home the hardware, it means the Academy has no choice but to catch the vibe, as the report says.
And it's validation.
It's total institutional validation. It's the difference between just being popular and being canonized, written into music history.
It feels like they finally had to admit they can't ignore the numbers anymore.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just the award itself, the whole ceremony. It seemed to be vibrating with this specific energy. I mean, the opening act.
Rosé and Bruno Mars.
Just saying those two names together feels expensive. They performed APT.
Yeah.
And from the footage I saw, the chemistry was just, it was off the charts.
Electric. But help me out here, for the listener who maybe knows Bruno Mars but isn't deep in the K-pop world, who is Rosé in this context? Why her?
Yeah, good question.
So Rosé is from Blackpink, arguably the biggest girl group in the world. But as a soloist, she has this very unique, almost indie rock leaning voice, pairing her with Bruno Mars, who's the ultimate showman, the ultimate funk soul guy. It was brilliant.
It didn't feel like she was just a feature,
Not at all, and that's the key. Usually when Western artists collab with K-pop stars, it can feel a bit transactional.
Like, I'll use your fan base, you use my name.
Exactly. But this felt like two titans on stage. The source material called it main character energy from both sides.
I love that. Main character energy.
It just fits. It wasn't East meets West in some gimmicky way. It was just the new standard for pop. It normalizes these artists at the very top of the hierarchy. They're not guests at the Grammy party anymore.
They're hosting it.
They are hosting the party.
Speaking of being at the top of the food chain, we have to talk about Jungkook.
Yes.
Because in the middle of all this music news, there was a business headline that caught my eye.
Yeah.
Jungkook was just named the new face of Hublot.
Which is a fascinating pivot from music to, well, luxury branding.
Right. And I'm looking at this and thinking, okay, celebs get brand deals. He sells sneakers. He sells whatever. Why does Hublot matter? It's just really expensive watches.
It is expensive watches, but it's also a very specific signal. Hublot is high horology, Swiss luxury. It's conservative, old money status.
Okay.
These brands usually hire, tennis players, retired legends, actors who played James Bond. They want timeless. By picking Jungkook, Hublot is making a massive statement about who holds cultural power right now.
Wow.
It's global icon behavior, as the report put it.
So it's not about selling watches to his younger fans.
No. Teenagers aren't buying $20,000 watches. They're betting that Jungkook appeals to the 30-something, 40-something person with disposable income who sees him as the new definition of success.
So it's another step.
It cements the idea that these artists have transcended idol status. They're just global luxury icons now.
It's a total takeover. You have the critical acclaim with the Grammys, the performance with Rosé, and the commercial dominance with Jungkook. It's a trifecta.
It really is. And it sets up a perfect contrast for our next topic. Because while K-pop is conquering these very formal Western institutions, we had something just as revolutionary happen on the biggest stage in the United States.
Oh, I know exactly where you're going. We have to pivot. Super Bowl LXI.
The big game.
The biggest game. It was last Sunday. And look, I'm a casual football fan at best, but I am a huge halftime show fan.
Of course.
And usually, the halftime show is about broad appeal, right? It's play the hits, make sure grandma and the toddler are both dancing.
Exactly. It's designed to be the safest, most palatable 15 minutes of TV you can imagine.
So then, Bad Bunny.
Bad Bunny.
He hosts the halftime show. And I want to emphasize that word hosted. Because he didn't just do a concert. He threw a Puerto Rican wedding on stage.
I love that detail, the wedding theme.
And here's the kicker, the stat that just blew my mind. 135 million viewers. And he kept the entire performance 100% Spanish.
That's the one. That is the statistic that just stops me in my tracks. 100% Spanish.
No Spanglish, no Hello America, not even one verse in English just to be nice.
Zero. And you have to understand the risk there. For decades, the unspoken rule for Latin artists breaking into the U.S. mainstream was the crossover.
Right.
Think Shakira, Ricky Martin. They had to release English albums. They had to, translate their souls to be understood by the American monoculture.
It's like, I'll give you the flavor, but I'll serve it on white bread.
Precisely. And Bad Bunny looked at that formula and just burned it. By performing entirely in Spanish to 135 million people, he made a massive power statement.
What's the statement?
He's saying, the numbers are on my side, the culture is on my side, I don't need to translate myself for you, you need to catch up to me.
That is incredibly bold. I mean, can you imagine the meetings with the network executives? You want to do what?
Oh, I'm sure there were some nervous people in a boardroom somewhere, but it's a total win for representation. And let's talk about that wedding theme for a second.
Yeah, why a wedding? Why not just a party or a beach vibe?
Because a wedding is intimate. It's familial. It's deeply rooted in community and tradition. By putting a Puerto Rican wedding on the 50-yard line, he wasn't just performing songs. He was inviting 135 million people into his private cultural space.
He made the Super Bowl adapt to him.
Yes. And speaking of adapting, he brought a guest. And this is where my jaw hit the floor.
Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga.
The report says she appeared for a Latin remix. There was an absolute bop. But just think about that dynamic. You have Lady Gaga, who is basically American pop royalty.
And notice what happened. Did she come out and sing Bad Romance in English to sort of save the show for the monolingual viewers?
No, she did a Latin remix.
Exactly. She entered his world. She adapted to the Puerto Rican wedding context. That flips the entire script of pop history.
Wow.
Usually, the local artist adapts to the American star. Here, the American icon bowed to the cultural gravity of the Latin artist.
That's such a good point. It shows you who's holding the center of gravity now. It feels like we're seeing the end of English as like the default setting for global entertainment.
We are. The monoculture isn't English only anymore. It's polyglot. It's messy. And it's so much more interesting.
So, okay, We have the Grammys acknowledging K-pop history. We have the Super Bowl broadcasting a Spanish-language wedding to the masses. These are very human, very sweaty, very cultural victories. They're about heritage.
Roots, yeah. The roots are essential here.
But then, just when we think we have a handle on the vibe, the notes throw us a total curveball. Because while all this very human stuff is happening, something else is bubbling up in New York City that feels, well, the opposite of human.
This is where we take a sharp left turn into the future. Or maybe the memory of the future.
Let's talk about the New Humans Digital Art Expo. This is happening at the new museum.
Right.
I've seen some photos of this online, and it is weird. The source calls it an AI-driven immersive experience. And the main adjective they use is spooky chic.
Spooky chic is a great term for the uncanny valley, isn't it?
But explain this concept to me. Memory of the future. What does that even mean? How can you remember something that hasn't happened?
That's the philosophical hook, right?
Yeah.
If we connect it to the bigger picture, think about the contrast. At the Super Bowl, you're looking at a ritual that's centuries old. It's about your past, your ancestors.
Right. It's grounded.
But the New Humans exhibit, this is an AI. It's an algorithm processing billions of data points to hallucinate people who don't exist. It's generating memories of events that never took place involving humans who were never born.
Okay, that is definitely spooky.
And it implies that technology is now trying to replicate the very texture of humanity. But why chic? Because we're fascinated by our own reflection, even when it's a machine holding the mirror. The fact that it's gone viral means people are captivated by this artificial version of us.
It's almost like, okay, on one hand, you have Bad Bunny being aggressively, authentically real. This is my culture, my language, take it or leave it. And then on the other hand, you have this AI saying, I can dream up a culture that doesn't even exist yet.
That's the tension of 2026 in a nutshell. We are simultaneously craving extreme authenticity, which is why the Spanish performance worked, why the K-pop win feels so earned, and we're also courting this totally synthetic future.
It's a paradox. We want the realest of the real and the fakest of the fake, all at once.
Or maybe the AI art is forcing us to value the real stuff more.
How so?
Think about it. When you walk out of an exhibit where machines are hallucinating new humans, maybe that makes you want to go home and listen to a track like Golden or watch a performance like APT, because you need to feel that pulse. You need to know there's a real heartbeat behind the art.
That's a really interesting take. So the more the memory of the future tries to trick us, the more we cling to the Puerto Rican wedding.
Exactly. We crave the texture of reality, and nothing has more texture than a live performance in a native language or a breakthrough award that took years of struggle to achieve.
Right.
An AI can generate a song, but it can't generate the history of K-pop's fight for recognition. It can't generate the cultural weight of Puerto Rico on the Super Bowl stage.
So the New Humans exhibit is cool, it's viral, but it lacks the story.
It lacks the struggle, and I think that's why these three stories fit together so perfectly. They're all asking, what does it mean to be human in 2026? One is defined by algorithm, and the others are defined by heritage and grit.
And clearly, heritage and grit are having a legendary week.
A massive week.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. Let's try to summarize this briefing. If our listener is at a Valentine's dinner tonight and there's an awkward silence, what are the three things they need to drop to sound like the smartest person in the room?
Okay, here's your cheat sheet. Point 1, the Grammys. History was made. Golden broke the glass ceiling for K-pop, and Rosé and Bruno Mars proved that the genre isn't a guest in the house of pop anymore.
It owns the house.
It owns the house. Point 2, the Super Bowl. Bad Bunny hosted a Puerto Rican wedding for 135 million people in Spanish, and Lady Gaga joined the party on his terms.
A huge win for cultural sovereignty.
Massive. Proves you don't need to assimilate to dominate. And point 3, the new museum in NYC.
The spooky chic part.
Right. The New Humans exhibit. It gives us a glimpse of an AI-driven memory of the future, reminding us that while our culture is getting more human and specific, our art is getting more synthetic and universal.
A week of contradictions, high energy, massive shifts.
And honestly, it's exciting. It feels like the rules are being written by the artists now, not the executives.
And that brings us to you, the listener. We've laid out the landscape. You've got the historic wins, the cultural takeovers, the spooky AI dreams. So, Where's your vibe today?
That is the question.
I know the report mentioned a new ATZ drop. Are you streaming that? Or are you, heading to a digital gallery to see what the robots are dreaming about?
Or maybe just rewatching that halftime show and appreciating the absolute audacity of it all.
Whatever you're doing, it feels like we're in a moment where you get to choose your own reality. The briefing signed off by telling us to stay hydrated, stay iconic. And honestly, that's solid advice for Valentine's Day.
It's practical and aspirational. I'm going to try to do both.
Before we go, I want to leave everyone with one final thought to chew on. We talked about how AI is creating these new humans in art. And we talked about how K-pop and Latin artists are claiming their specific history on the global stage.
So here's the question I'm pondering. As we move forward, are we moving toward a culture that honors specific human heritage more? Simply because technology is starting to get so good at faking humanity.
In other words, does the fake make the real more valuable?
Exactly. When the memory of the future is artificial, the memory of the past, our culture, our language, our weddings, that might just become the most premium luxury of all.
Something to think about. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you in the next one.
Stay iconic.